Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today is the first Monday video of the month. It is LMIAY, and that means that we're going to check out your guys' creativity with the prompt, the first prompt of the year since the cringe stream took out January's prompt because I didn't want to overload on like the requests. So we've got this. The new prompt for next month is up if you want to check it out. It's special, okay? It's weird. It's unconventional. It may not be everybody's thing, but I need to see it. I need to see what people do with it. Anyway, before we get started though, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also memberships if you want to support in another way. The second thing is if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through LMIAY, the monthly prompt writing contest where I give you a prompt like this. You create something out of that prompt and then we read them together on the first Monday video of the month. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit your first chapter and the cover to the Fresh Meat feature, that chapter will be read on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work. It is the fairest way that I have to share works that are not necessarily my taste, that are not going to be critiqued by me or reviewed by me, because I'm not the target audience for a lot of things. I am doing the best that I can to share a variety of stuff though. And then the third way to be featured is if you have a book that you would like me to read, whether it is written by you or it is a book that you have found and just want my opinion on it, or a book that you like and you want my opinion on it. It's whatever. If you have a book you would like me to read or recommend a book to me, there is a link in the link tree for recommending a book. And during summer, I will be selecting books from that, theoretically, mostly, hopefully indie. But if there is whatever is on there, that's where I'll be getting books from to do reviews here. So just if you submit your own book, prepare yourself for the types of videos that I do for book reviews or book discussions on the channel. I don't want to surprise anybody, but you're going to get the same treatment, the same legitimacy as any review that I do on the channel. The third thing is if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including the local library upon request. My newest novel, Body More Zero, came out in October featuring these gentlemen here, and my newest work that is my current project, the first book in the Legend of Bill Cassidy, should be coming out hopefully in November. And it is a collaborative effort with M.M. Morris. So that is the first in a trilogy that will also have a prequel, because you got to type in the Legend of Bill Cassidy. You got to talk about Bill Cassidy after, the legend. Anyway, sorry. With that said, let's jump into the prompt because you guys delivered, okay? I'm going to give you a hint. Oh, I don't have my phone on me. I was going to give you a hint about like what the prompt was this month. Maybe you know because of the thumbnail. I haven't made the thumbnail at this point, but maybe it gave you a hint. And well, love is hard. If you are single in February and you don't want to be single, because let's face it, a lot of people want to be single, there are unfortunately not a lot of options for finding a good catch. Now, there is such a thing as this dating app that you would put on your phone, and usually dating apps come with wonderful, hopeful names that, give you this idea that you're going to find the love of your life and it's going to be super easy, They come with the best names, such as Hell or Dumpster Fire or Plenty of Fish. And so then you use these apps to potentially find a match to spend the rest of your life with, except for this month. The prompt this month is a bad luck on a dating app. And I gave that to you guys to interpret as you will. What does it look like? Who got scammed? Who got murdered? We're going to find out, because this month is the month of love, and which is why I'm wearing the orange sweater, because who doesn't like oranges? And if you're not a person who likes oranges, keep that to yourself, because today, everybody loves oranges. This is a non-rejection day. We are all sad enough. So today, everyone is an orange lover. They are sweet. They make beautiful juice. I don't care your personal feelings about oranges. We are orange stans today. With that said, let's see what some of this bad luck in dating looks like. The first story is from Mae Tanner. Drea sat in front of Dr. Garo Olasol's desk, watching him. The man flicked through a file on his notebook. After several minutes, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. His eyes met hers briefly before his gaze drifted down to her breasts. Her skin crawled. The way he looked at her made her feel unclean. I've read the report from your background check, and I'm afraid that you don't meet the requirements for working working here in the Tribune's infirmary. She gazed back at him placidly while she raged inside. To be denied at the last hurdle was unacceptable. The man's eyes softened as he studied her chest. She firmed her resolve. She worked too hard to get here to be stymied now. Casually, she reached for her neckline and tugged at the cloth, as if the room was too hot, partially revealing the rounded form of one breast. Dr. Ulassel's breath quickened and his eyes sharpened. "Is there anything that I can do to prove myself worthy? I've dreamed of working for the Tribune since I was a little girl." He leered at her. "I can think of something. You'll have to prove yourself before we allow you to leave the infirmary grounds, though. We can start right now if you like." He gestured toward the door in the side wall of his office. She sprang to her feet. "I would love to prove myself to you. I'll do anything to work here." He moved to her side, placed her hand on her waist, and guided her through the door. An enormous bed all but filled the other room. He kissed the back of her neck. She suppressed a revulsion. Her mother had prepared her for this. Gara Ulassel's proclivities were the known factor. "Show me what you've got." His voice was husky with lust. They'd both stripped their clothes off and were engaged on the bed when an alarm sounded. He swore as he pulled away from her and leapt off the bed. He threw his shirt on and raced back to his office. She followed him and stood, leaning against the doorframe as he answered a video call. A woman's voice came from the speakers. "Are you all right, doctor?" He smoothed his hair. Yes, I'm very well. Please accept my apologies for not picking up quicker. I was instructing a new staff member on your duties." "Were you now?" He straightened his clothes. "You called me for a reason, Madame Tribune. What do you need? Would you be able to remove the implants from my guards?" Drea's eyes widened. What had made the Tribune want to do that? The rest of the conversation frustrated her. The Tribune didn't say why she wanted the implants removed from her guards, and Dr. Ullassel couldn't force her to explain. Dr. Ullassel sat at his desk for a few minutes after the call ended, staring at the screen. He glanced to where Drea stood in the doorway. "Shall we return to what we were doing?" Later, when she retired to the quarters assigned to her, Drea spent an hour in the bath, scrubbing the man from her body. Once she'd gotten herself as clean as possible, she returned to her room, sat at the vanity, and wept. The only way that she could achieve her goal was to let him do whatever he wanted and pretend she enjoyed it. She drew a shuddering breath and left her chin staring at the mirror. "Remember what Mama told you," she said to her reflection as she fingered the scribber her mother's contacts had given her. "They put an implant in Yari's head. Nothing Garo Ulassel can do to you is worse than that." She stood, turning away from the mirror. "Besides, how often can he want me to pleasure him? Surely he can't want it every day." She hid the scribber under her mattress. If Yaris had his implant removed, she wouldn't need it. Well, Drea, I hate to tell you this, but usually often people who abuse you in this position, who sexually abuse you, who use their power over you, do want sex quite often. And if they don't want the sex personally, they want you to have sex with a different one of their victims while they watch. It's not really a rare thing when you're in this position. Now, how this relates to a dating app, I'm not entirely sure. Can't even say that it is bad luck, because it sounds like she got into this on purpose for a goal, and that she knew going in because it mentioned his proclivities being well known. So it's not exactly bad luck as opposed to bad people existing and Drea going in to counter the situation. Or to, with the goal of freeing somebody. And the next story is by Egao Chan, called A-Class Date. The Bright Spot Cafe ranked number 2 in the cafes for first dates in the city. Brian reserved a booth located in the inner parts, a spot that cost money to reserve and had a timer on how much time he could use it. He chose a position with optimal lighting that would elevate his nice facial features. He got here just around 3 minutes early. According to various blind date guides, this would show his respect for the girl while at the same time not appearing too thirsty. Angeline got to the cafe around 1 minute 10 seconds after their agreed-upon time. Just late enough to show that she was a fancy lady of status, but not too inconsiderate on her date's time. "Hello, Brian," Angeline greeted Brian with a wide, bright smile. "Nice to meet you." "Pleasure to meet you, Angeline." Brian stood up and greeted his date, then sat down after her. "So, have you been here before?" Angeline laid her purse down. "No, I ordered takeout before, but never been in here." Brian shook his head, smiling from a delightful sight that his date was gorgeous with just the right amount of sexy. Me neither. I've heard so much about this place. Angeline giggled. Brian pushed the porcelain toothpick holder toward Angeline with a smile. Can we do a fun experiment before we start? Can you try poking your middle finger with a toothpick? Just a tiny bit. Well, okay. Angeline was confused, but the young man's deep blue eyes, chiseled chin, and broad shoulders made her set her doubts aside. Her hand stopped right when the tip of the toothpick touched her skin, barely pushing her skin down. Aha! Brian snapped his finger and raised his voice. You're not really here. You're using a virtual presence android. What? No! Angeline almost jumped out of her seat. Her voice was squeaky. How can you say that to me? Then her eyes opened wide. Wait, you're not here either. You're using a VPA, you hypocrite. Huh? No! Brian scoffed as he picked up a toothpick and poked his palm, showing the tip pressing down on his skin. You see this? I am not like you. Well, if you're so human, say a curse word. Angeline stared into Brian's deep blue eyes. Brian hesitated and squirmed. I don't want to. Bull crap. Say it. Angeline stood up and leaned over the table. Say it. Say fuck. Food. Brian's voice got distorted before he could finish the word. Liar. You hypocrite. Angeline smirked as she sat back at her seat. Awkward silence befell the two. Neither one knew what they could do. Using Virtual Presence Android was against the terms of service of the prestigious dating app that brought them here. If either of them got reported, they could get suspended. So, what do we do now? Brian was the first to speak up. I guess we could, watch a movie together here. I booked the booth for 3 hours. Fine, Angeline grunted. What do you want to watch? Mad Max? Brian shrugged. Okay. Angeline raised her right hand. A QR code appeared on her palm. Share your vision with me. Brian raised his right hand and scanned the code using his palm. An error screen popped on the monitor in front of him. His actual body sitting in a gaming chair in his gaming room. Vision incompatible. Sharing failed. These dreaded red letters meant only one thing. What the hell? Angeline grimaced as she retracted her hand. You're a smart robotics user? Gross! Stay away from me so I don't get an android virus. Typical orange droid user. Always so fucking smug and condescending. Brian shot back. What's with the attitude? You can't use a other kidney to buy a durable skin package? Your coffee's here. A pleasant female voice interrupted their argument. A waitress with a full head of flowing black hair, all the right curve, then an cute skirt and a low-cut white t-shirt came to their table. She bent down slightly and put the 2 cups before Brian and Angeline. Matcha latte for the lady and hazelnut dark roast for the gentleman. Our facial recognition found your past orders and complimented you for your favorites. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Barbara. Angeline groaned. Then she pointed right at Brian. Wait, did you just snap a picture of her? Dude, you're on a date! No, I'm not. My android blinks like a regular person. Brian was flustered and waved his hands. And you're streaming your date right now. What the hell? Do you want to get reported? Streaming? That's ridiculous. Your username is Lana Goes on Dates, and I'm looking at your face on the stream right now. Okay. But that's because I need to reach 1,000 subs before the end of the month, okay? Angeline softened her tone. I'm sorry. For the moment, Brian wanted to tell her off, but for some reason, it just felt wrong. Yeah, I'm sorry too. I'm sorry. Barbara, the waitress, came back. But can you lower your voice a little? The other guests are concerned. I'm sorry. We'll keep it down. Brian shook his head. Barbara, you're human, right? What do you mean? I mean, you're not an android, right? Angeline narrowed her eyes. Wait, stop. Listen to me. I'm a root. Tell me your name and model number. Barbara smiled. My name is Barbara. My model is NV522E. My neural network is trained on the general humanoid model Gen Boyd 550. I am pleased to serve you today. Both Angeline and Brian groaned and fell back into their seats. Hey, Angeline decided to break the newly formed ice. You want to have virtual presence sex in the bathroom? Only if you turn off the streaming. Yeah, I already did. Angeline looked around. The cafe owner struck my channel, so I think at least I'd try this first. Sure, why not? Brian took out his shame machine and connected it to the computer. What an unfortunate turn of events, a bad luck on both sides. But I mean, I guess if you're going to be dishonest, you can also expect somebody else to be dishonest with you. What? Probably the best outcome for that, because if one of them had been honest and the other one was dishonest, it would just be sad for, the one that was tricked. But when they're both frauds, you get what you get. That is what it is. Leave it to Egao to make it this horror situation that is just terrible people doing terrible things. That at least they found each other. The next story is by McKeever. Javine? Robert asked, setting a glass of wine that had a slightly yellow tint to it in front of Jane. What is, Jane began, picking up the glass and sniffing it, hoping that she was doing it right. Yellow wine, Robert explained, sitting down at the table. It's a special type of white wine that's matured with film of yeast in a barrel. It's always been one of my favorites. It had taken Jane by surprise when Robert mentioned his family's vineyard. It hadn't been on his profile. He had said that he wasn't sure where to put it, which Jane supposed made some sense. Robert raised his glass. Salute! Salute, Jane agreed, toasting with the glass before setting it down. So, Robert began, cutting into his fist, how are you liking the vineyard so far? It's been wonderful, Jane beamed. When he invited her for the weekend, she was hesitant. They hadn't been dating for very long. Now she was here, and she was glad she came. Robert had shown the vineyard and the cellar where the wine was stored. It's like something out of another country, an older one. He broke into a smile. Most people don't have an appreciation for older constructions. You look around you, and all you see are buildings that were put up 2 weeks ago. Big box stores with no character behind them. For a moment, Jane didn't know how to respond to that. I honestly wasn't expecting that, she finally admitted. Robert took a sip of wine. It's something that I feel very strongly about. Good quality is so unappreciated nowadays. As they engaged in conversation, it happened slowly. As Jane talked and tried to eat, her body began to suddenly feel dizzy. It dawned on her that she was having trouble breathing. Robert, something's wrong. Robert, her voice began to slur as her mouth froze. Robert stood up. I was starting to wonder if I messed up the dosage. Jane's heart began to beat faster as Robert came around and pulled her out of her chair, a fiendish grin on his face that she had never seen before. Why was it becoming so hard to breathe? Her body and mind began to race with panic as Robert picked her up bridal style and carried her down the hall. Don't worry, Janie, Robert said. You know how much I value quality. When it was done, Jane's corpse buried in the wine cellar with the others, Robert sat in a leather chair in the drawing room, scrolling through the dating app he never removed from his phone. It was never too soon to start looking for the next one. It makes sense that he's serial killing off of a dating app, but when it mentioned the wine was yellow and that he had, taste of a certain old variety, I was expecting his wine to just be piss. Not that this is any better than, somebody making you drink piss that they call wine. That would be also what it is. I got a vineyard. You want to taste my grapes? Oh, you know what those grapes are. We keep them in the family. Passed down for generations, these grapes. Do you know what I mean? But, then it mentioned the cellar, and I'm like, okay, well, she can end up in the cellar. She's R.I.P. I bet it is your life juices that also make the stuff so sweet. The next story is by Vaughan Farrar, called If Looks Could Kill. Do you ever feel like you're stuck in a rut? You just wake up, look in the mirror for 10 minutes, repressing the self-hatred, get dressed, go to work, and realize that you don't hate yourself, but rather you hate other people. Then you go home, eat a whole-ass bucket of ice cream, and start hating yourself again. Then go to sleep, rinse and repeat. Sometimes there's a shower in between. Maybe I've just been in retail for too long. Not too sure what it was. Perhaps the fact that my favorite brand of ice cream had just been discontinued, or that someone had stolen the welcome mat from my apartment's doorstep. Again. But I decided that it was time for a change. I needed something or someone to spice up my life, so I went to where all people go to shake things up. I downloaded the Sinkin dating app. The logo, being that of a post-iceberg Titanic with devil horns, was an interesting choice, but I digress. After scoping out some of the profiles of both men and women, I discovered that there were 3 categories of profile pictures: horny, pet exposure, and whatever you call it when people take photos of themselves at that lower angle that makes their heads look like a thumb. Seeing as how the closest thing to a pet I have is one of the rats in the building's basement, and I'd rather not look like a thumb, I figured I'd go for conservatively horny. I put on some Daisy Dukes to show the little legs off and an off-the-shoulders tee to reveal that I have a shoulder, I guess. The outfit looked cute and wasn't spilling out the goods like in most profile pics. It was just what I was going for. Didn't take long for the pings on my phone to start rolling in, so I'd say that it was pretty successful strategy. Of course, it was a swipe up, swipe down system, so the pings were only people swiping down and vice versa. I'll admit that there were a couple of horny profile pics of guys I swiped down on. Typically, that the first thing they both messaged me was DTF, followed by some not-so-flattering pics of their junk. Call me a prude, but maybe I'd be more DTF if we'd actually spoken, gotten to know each other a little, and not had my retinas violated. You know, just regular people things. I also swiped down on some horny girl pics because why not? You live once, right? But after receiving their photos that showed some interesting angles of where once there was a bikini bottom, I discovered that I wasn't up for that kind of experimentation anymore. Live and learn, I suppose. Thankfully, I had swiped on some good-looking guys holding their pets in their pictures and was able to start some decent conversations. Couldn't say that for all of them. My retinas were violated at least 3 more times. Thank the stars for the Instablock button. Alas, there was the obvious pitfall of them having nothing interesting to say about themselves except for how much they love their dogs, cats, or in one case, a pygmy gerbil. Don't get me wrong, it's very sweet, but I wanted to know about them, not Fido, Mr. Whiskers, or Mini King William VIII, which had me wondering as to what happened to the first 7 gerbils, and why were they royalty? In any case, I eventually got to talking to a guy who owned a lorikeet with a beautiful rainbow of feathers. He didn't even bring up the bird in conversation, but instead he asked me questions about my life and what I was doing and where I was heading. It was refreshing and equal back and forth. Then he sent me a picture out of the blue, and due to past experiences with the app, I was hesitant to unblur it. Thankfully, it was just the lorikeet, from an awkward angle, that made its cute little head look like a thumb. I replied with, "Huh?" And he apologized. The man, not the bird. Apparently, his little feathered friend had just so happened to take a selfie while his phone was on the kitchen counter and sent it to our Sinkin chat. I didn't believe him for a second, but the flirty bird approach worked its charm. We set up a dinner date. We decided on a casual place, nothing too fancy, just a jeans and a nice blouse kind of bar and grill. The service kind of sucked, and they probably weren't getting paid enough to give a damn. A relatable sentiment, to be sure. Thankfully, the company made up for it and more. I'll admit, I was nervous at first, and a little cynical, to say the least. For all I knew, I'd become parrot food by the end of the night. But my expectations were blown away when this handsome man wearing jeans and a well-fitting polo walked through the door. Oh, and he didn't at all sound like a pirate, which, yes, was a real concern considering his choice of pet. Aside from the awkward hello you swap upon first meeting someone, the conversations were smooth. There was no looking at phones, no bug-eyed staring at my cleavage, though I did catch a subtle attempt at a glimpse or two, as was expected. He was such a gentleman, the night was going well, and it seemed almost too good to be true. It was early days, but I figured that I'd found someone to truly make me smile. Our mains finally came to the table, and he ordered chicken salad and I had a steak. I'm not sure when it happened, but sometime between cutting the 3rd bite of the chewiest meat that I'd ever encountered and dipping it in the sauce that can only be described as a burnt mushroom juice, his face had started turning red. "Are you all right?" I asked, but he could only respond in tight wheezes. "Oh no," I gasped. I rushed over to him, yelling, "He's choking! Someone help!" I didn't know what to do, so I just started smacking his back like they do in the movies. The Heimlich maneuver might as well have been a foreign language to me, but I wrapped my arms around his stomach and squeezed tightly over and over. Everyone else was either too drunk or in shock, apparently, to do anything, so it was all down to me. Then it happened. He fell unconscious, face down into his half-eaten bowl of chicken and greens. I kept smacking his back, but it made no difference. "Somebody, please, call a bloody ambulance!" I screamed. I didn't know what else to do. I'd never taken a first aid course before. I was lost. And so was he. An ambulance eventually showed up, and the paramedics zipped him up into a bag on a gurney. Fairly sure that's not a great sign for anyone's mortality. I sat back at the table, silent and staring at nothing in the distance as the flashes of red and blue faded from view. Could have been a minute. Could have been an hour. I'm not sure. But a waiter eventually came and spoke to me. Sorry to be a pain, madame, but about the check. If looks could kill. No, what luck. That is the... Bruh. You know, you'd think bad things are going to happen because of the date. Not that the date is going to croak on you and everybody is just going to stand around. Talk about traumatizing. How about we never go on a date again if it's somebody is going to die? Oh my gosh. R.I.P. dating life. From all of the things that I could imagine or I would have already thought of for bad things happening when you're on a date or from a dating app, your date choking and dying on you is not at all where my head went. This story is by Fayanzār. I hope that I said that right. He is a resident wolfman. If you have a preference of how you're referred to beyond that, let me know, because that's how I think of you, to be honest. The resident Fido. Is Fido a derogatory term in this case? Moving on. So boring. I sigh and roll over. My last week at work was a nightmare incarnate. That had never happened before, but at the end of it, I snapped and told everyone that I was taking a month-long holiday. Surprisingly, it worked. But not in the way that I expected. The first 2 days of my holiday were fantastic. I read stuff, watched stuff, played some other stuff, and chilled overall. But this morning, all the accumulated stress finally caught up with me. In short, it's almost noon, and now I'm still in bed. My mental capacities floating just slightly above zero. Groaning, I grab my friend's old phone from the bedside table. Mine broke last week, and I haven't had the time to replace it. After a few minutes of mindless Twitter scrolling, one thing in particular catches my eye. It seems that furry dating apps are booming now, with this whole new category of app market. Of course, I can't help but check it out myself. As I go to Google Play and type in fur, I immediately see the category furry dating app pop up. Well, here we go. The first app I noticed makes me snort. Furinder? Seriously? Do these guys have no imagination or what? But I quickly eat my words when I see another two called Pet Finder and Doggy Dates. Alright, at least Furinder doesn't sound so damn wrong. Scrolling down, I spot an app that makes me genuinely laugh. Boner. Whoever came up with that one is a genius. And the good reviews make me think it's worth trying. The interface is nice, but I pay almost no attention to it as I fill in my profile. Some photos, date of birth, preferences. It also asks me if I want to see furries, werewolves, or both. These werewolves must be some new furry subtype, I guess. They emerge and disappear so quickly that it's impossible to keep track of them. So I select both. Fortunately, this app has no swipe matchmaking bullshit, so I quickly get into some chat with some guy named Aiden. He's quite handsome, seems funny, and his fursuit, there are photos of him wearing it, is nothing short of a masterpiece. It looks so realistic that Aiden could play an actual werewolf in a film without the need for any VFX. We hit it off, and it turns out that he lives just a few blocks away. So we agree to meet for a couple of beers at the nearby park later tonight. It's dark when I go out, but the spring air is still warm, and I can smell the cherry blossoms a few hundred feet from the park, and soon after I start to feel a little dizzy, in a good way. The park itself is deserted, which makes it even easier to find Aiden. He's sitting on a bench not far from the street lamp, wearing the same fursuit that I'd seen in his photos. "Hey, Matt," he shouts, waving at me. "I'm here." "Ha, I see." I laugh as I approach him. "I didn't think that you'd be in your fursuit." As I say this, I see Aiden's lips curl into a big toothy grin. Damn, how much must he have paid for that thing? "Fursuit, huh?" he says. "That's a good one." "Yeah." I nod, not quite sure what he means. On closer inspection, even in the dim light, I can see that the fur looks extremely silky. And his eyes. And the eyes. I'd never seen such deep blue eyes before. It must have cost a fortune, right? I continue. A confused look crosses Aiden's face as he tilts his head. "What do you mean?" "Like, your fursuit is very realistic," I reply. "All those lip, eye movements, facial expressions, it's really cool." The confusion over his muzzle deepens. "Yeah, 'cause it's not a fursuit. It's the real me." "Ha!" I grin. "So what are you, a werewolf?" Aiden just nods. "That's a good one," I repeat what he said a few minutes ago. "You must..." No, seriously, he interrupts. You didn't notice who you selected on Boner or what? What do you mean? Our conversation starts going in reverse. He huffs and crosses his arms over his chest. It was funny a minute ago, but now, come on, drop it, I say, taking another step toward him. Fine, keep it a secret, but at least let me see your face. With that, I grab his ears of the fursuit and tug them. But what I didn't expect was for him to yelp and bat at my hands with his paws. Ow, 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 it hurts, he cries. And only then do I release him. Utterly shocked, I step back and look at my fingers, which are starting to tremble. They didn't feel like fursuit. Those were real dog ears. So you are a werewolf, I exclaim. Duh, Aiden spreads his hands. But wait, I stutter, trying to gather my thoughts. How could I not know if you guys existed if this app... Huh? He raised his eyebrows. You weren't supposed to even be able to see this app in the store if you didn't know about us, unless... It finally dawns on me. I used my friend's phone. We stare at each other for a moment, and then both burst out laughing. Fursuit, he gasped between gahuffs. Realistic. Aiden, I'm sorry, I groaned too. I didn't mean to rip your ear off. When we came to our senses, he finally gets up from the bench, and it's only now that I see how huge he is, almost a foot taller than me. Well, he says, suddenly shyly, I can only hope that you don't mind me being a werewolf. No, it's amazing, I exclaim, grabbing his paw. The pads of it feel incredibly soft and warm. If I haven't embarrassed myself too much, is that offer of a beer still on the table? Yup, Aiden grins. Then lead the way. You could call it bad luck, or you've just found man's best friend, and your best friend, and your lover, who is like 8 feet tall. I mean, guard dog, lover, pet of equal standing. Sounds like a good deal to me. Also, I guess you just found out that your friend is a werewolf, or possibly you already knew your friend was a werewolf, because that was like sounds like you got some things to discuss. But the last story is by Wraith, which, welcome back. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen you, Wraith, so it's good to see you around. The dinner went by faster than Daniel expected, mostly with Lily asking him about a music career, though she wasn't very forthcoming about her background. Regardless, one conversation led to the next, and he soon found himself riding the elevator up to her apartment. I have to admit, he said as she unlocked the door and the two of them entered, this isn't something that I do all the time. Really, Mr. Rockstar? Not even with groupies? They usually throw themselves at the singer or guitarist, leaving you and your bass player all by your lonesome. Usually, but not always. Matt has a steady girlfriend. Not you? No, Daniel sighed. Not anymore. Her loss? Lily smirked. I like drummers. They always have the best rhythm. Daniel's heartbeat tripled as Lily pulled him in for a kiss. The taste of her lipstick and the scent of her perfume overwhelmed him, and as he offered no resistance, she led him to the living room. He wasn't even sure that he could, given her remarkable grip on his wrist. She pushed him down onto the couch, and in a flash of emotion of her dress was gone. She stood in front of him in only her lingerie, dimly lit by the street lights outside like a noir femme fatale. Right here? Asked an astonished Daniel as she mounted his lap. It's as good a spot as any. She kissed him again. She started to unbutton his shirt when suddenly there was a click as the apartment door unlocked and opened again. A man walked in, dressed in business casual wear, a tired look on his face. Hey, babe. The man's voice was low, flat, and lethargic as he flicked on the light and took off his jacket. Lily didn't respond, too busy planting kisses on Daniel's neck. Pleasant as the feeling should have been, he was too distracted, his gaze fixed on the newcomer. Daniel expected a death glare, or even a look of embarrassment or defeat, anything at all to tell what Lily's apparent boyfriend thought of the situation. But there was nothing. Work was good. The man loosened his tie. Great, said Lily as she reached for Daniel's belt. They're having a little party for Hannah's engagement. They were just asking if you... Well, we'll talk later, Lily snapped, and Daniel saw a wicked gleam in her eye. I'm busy. Okay. He flicked off the light and disappeared down the hallway. Now, where were we? Said Lily as she pawed Daniel's groin. Daniel stammered. I'm not sure this is a great idea. Aw, what's wrong? It's not like we have an audience. We kinda do, though. Are you sure that he's okay with this? You didn't hear him complain, did you? No, but... The boyfriend's voice called from down the hall. Have you seen my... I said I was busy! Lily shouted, her voice more ferocious than Daniel could ever have guessed her capable of. I know, but it's important. I need it for work. Before her boyfriend was even done speaking, Lily sighed and put her hand on Daniel's chin. Give me a sec, sweetie. Then again, there was a strange gleam in her eye. It made Daniel's skin crawl, and he felt no small relief when she slid off of his lap and padded down the hallway. But a moment later, a loud crash came from the bedroom, and Daniel nearly jumped from his seat. Now he knew something wasn't right. His hand thrust into his pocket and he pulled out his phone. Opening his contacts, a single swipe brought him to Dimitri's name. He sent only one word: help. His phone buzzed with a reply a moment later. Coming! Daniel put his phone away and nearly leapt from his skin when he saw Lily suddenly in front of him. He hadn't heard her footsteps down the hall. Now that we're done with the interruptions, Lily licked her upper lip. Look, Lily, I'm sorry, said Daniel, standing hastily from the couch. I've had a great time with you, but I'm just not comfortable with this. Come on, baby, why get cold feet now? I really need this. Then go get it from your boyfriend. He's useless in bed. It's nice that he lets me stay here, but my passions demand more than he can deliver. I'm sorry, but I can't help you with that. I'm still getting over my ex. I don't care about her. Lily stepped forward and grabbed him by the wrist. I always get what I want. Even through his shirt, her nails bit his skin. Her eyes gleamed even in the dark light. Had they always been that sharp? Let go of me! Daniel pushed her away and made for the door, frantically unlocking it and throwing it open before Lily could retaliate. He bolted down the hallway and just about jumped down the stairs, busting out of the emergency exit and ignoring the alarm that he set off in the process. He sprinted across the parking lot and into the nearby park, hoping he'd be easy to find in an open area. Come on, Dimitri, where are you? Daniel heard a rushing wind behind him, and before he could turn his head, something slammed into his back, throwing him to the ground. He lay in the grass, gasping for air as he felt something wet slide across the nape of his neck. He was then violently rolled over, and his heart leaped up into his throat when he found a stark naked Lily pinning him to the ground. The pupils of her icy blue eyes had narrowed into cat-like slits, while two backwards curving horns had sprouted from her head, and though her form remained remarkably alluring, it was now shrouded by a pair of leathery wings. So, she rasped, her voice having taken on a demonic undertone as she licked his neck again. You wanted to do it outside like wild animals. I knew that you had it in you. Get off of me! Daniel shouted, but his struggle was in vain. Lily's otherworldly strength having totally overtaken him. I told you, I always get what I... Something whistled through the air as Lily taunted him, cutting her short. To Daniel's bewilderment, an arrow pierced her forehead. She gasped ever so quietly, her body going rigid, then, a moment later, collapsed on top of him. He summoned just enough strength to push her off and looked at Dimitri, approaching, crossbow in hand. Have I ever told you how good your timing is? Dimitri grinned in response and reached out a hand which Daniel accepted. You okay? Anything broken? Bleeding? I don't think so. Daniel pulled up a sleeve to see the nail marks on his arm, but luckily the skin hadn't broken. Dimitri then bent down to retrieve his arrow. Wrenching it free from Lily's forehead, its silver broadhead left a whisk of sulfuric smoke in its wake. What the fuck was she, a vampire? Succubus. The daughter of Lilith, so I guess he was under a spell or something. Dimitri gave a curious look, and Daniel explained the oddly passive nature of Lily's boyfriend. Slaying her may or may not be enough to break this spell. We will have to watch this place for a while. And if it isn't enough, can we do anything for him? We will see. Dimitri withdrew a snuff box from his satchel, sprinkling its powdered contents across Lily's form. As the compounds made contact, her flesh began to dissolve. What did you call that stuff again? Alkahest. Not the true alkahest, mind you, but you see it serves a similar purpose. Now, we must go. Daniel gave no argument and promptly followed Dimitri back to his car. The vehicle sped away from the scene, and Daniel was quiet as they drove through the silent city streets. Forgive me for sounding judgmental, said Dimitri after a while, but it would be best to be more discerning with the women going forward. Oh, fucking sure. Daniel gestured to his phone. Just let me edit my bio. No demons, right next to no single mothers. You repeat yourself, Dimitri smirked. Daniel laughed and then sighed. You're probably right. He opened his phone and hastily deleted the dating app that got him into this mess in the first place. Then he went to his contacts, scrolled until he found Morgan's name, and after a moment's hesitation, hit the call button. What an intro. Also, I'm wondering if the entire band, because obviously he's part of a band, that was one of his characteristics, I wonder if they're all kind of supernatural creature hunters, which is a fun idea to have this team of supernatural hunter people that are also band members that are going to different places, also living their lives. It sounds like a really fun urban fantasy story to pursue. The tension in this was great. The character interactions were great. I liked the way that Lily had brought him in, and the way that the boyfriend was introduced, and then like you're like, oh shit, I need to get out of here. Going from like this is kind of disconcerting to like we're leaving. Beautifully done. And Dimitri is a good wingman. We know that he is nearby, ready to take action as necessary. Great stories, everybody. Those are all of the features this month. If you want to be in next month, or if you want to try to be in next month, check out the prompt. I remind you, it is strange, but hopefully it's fun. With that said, let me know what your thoughts down in the comments below. Which was your favorite story? And with that said, happy February. Don't run into trouble on dating apps. I think we had like 3 attacks on the dating apps this time around. So, but you could find your werewolf boyfriend / best friend for life. So you take the wins where you can get them. With that said, have a great week and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry. Flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?